right, we are back to go over the 6 remaining body systems. The first one that we are going to look at for today is going to be the endocrine system. We will focus on the endocrine system in this class. It will be our second body system that we do after the nervous system that we ended with yesterday. Your endocrine system functions to produce, store, and secrete hormones. There are 9 major glands, and each is responsible for producing certain hormones. You see over here that some of them are listed. The hypothalamus, pituitary, and pineal glands are all in the brain, and that is not shown on this diagram included here. At the base of the throat, you have the thyroid gland. On the back of that, you have 4 parathyroid glands. Just above the heart, we have the thymus. In a female, we would have ovaries, and a male would have testes. There's a pancreas that is located kind of slightly behind the stomach. And then on top of each kidney, you have adrenal glands. So those are going to produce different hormones. We will focus on each of those and what they do specifically when we go over the endocrine system, because there are so many hormones, learning what they do, as well as different disorders and things like that that can happen if not enough or too much of each hormone is produced. So that's kind of all we're going to go over with it right now. We are going to see a short video just to kind of go over some information with the endocrine system.
Our body is always in flux. When we are cold, our body shivers. When we are hot, our body sweats. Our body engages in these activities to keep our internal temperature constant. This is an example of homeostasis, which is defined as the ability of the body to maintain a constant internal state. One major way the body maintains homeostasis is through the endocrine system. The endocrine system is a system of glands that produce hormones to regulate and control bodily activities. The endocrine system controls a number of important functions throughout the body, including growth and development, metabolism, and homeostasis. There are many different hormones in the body, and each is responsible for different functions. Estradiol, testosterone, insulin, growth hormone, and epinephrine are just a few examples of hormones. Although they are involved in different functions of the endocrine system, hormones work in a similar manner. First, a gland detects a change in the body's internal environment. This gland then increases the secretion of hormones, which enter the bloodstream. Hormones travel through the blood and can have potential effects throughout the body. However, hormones will not act on every cell. Hormones activate target cells by binding to specific receptors on the inside or outside of the target cells. When a hormone binds to a receptor, the receptor sends a signal throughout the cell. Just like a megaphone amplifies the volume of a person's voice, a hormone's message is amplified inside the cell. This signal goes a long way. Just a few hormones can induce great change. Once hormones have succeeded in sending their message to their target cells, and in this case, homeostasis is achieved, the gland decreases the secretion of hormones.
So, like the video showed, there are target cells or target organs for each hormone. So you don't want all hormones to be able to act on all cells, because hormones cause specific changes to happen, and you only want those changes to happen in certain places in the body. As I said before, we'll spend a lot more time going through the different hormones produced by which glands and what they do and that kind of thing when we get to the endocrine system. Next, what we're going to look at is my probably favorite body system, if you could have a favorite body system, and that would be the immune system. Your immune system is going to function to help fight off infection in the body. It includes several different organs and things throughout the body, including your lymph nodes and lymph vessels, the thymus gland, which we also saw was part of the endocrine system, as well as your bone marrow, because that produces your blood cells. So your white blood cells will be produced in your bone marrow. Part of your white blood cells, or part of the immune system, is your white blood cells. You've got different kinds that you see here. For example, neutrophils are able to kind of engulf and destroy bacteria or other pathogens. Pathogens are going to be anything that cause disease in the body. Eosinophils are associated with allergic reactions or allergy responses. We have basophils, monocytes, and lymphocytes. There are different kinds of lymphocytes. There are B cells and T cells. B cells are going to be responsible for making antibodies. Antibodies kind of have this Y shape that you see here in this diagram. And their ends are specific for different markers on certain pathogens. So that will allow an antibody to attach to and bind to and then inactivate certain or specific pathogens. So your plasma B cells, a type of lymphocyte or white blood cell, is going to be responsible for making antibodies in response to a specific pathogen. So let's say, for example, a person was exposed to SARS-CoV-2, which is the virus that causes COVID-19. Their B cells, their plasma B cells, would start to make antibodies to help fight off that virus. And then these antibodies are going to have specific ends to attach to the SARS-CoV-2 virus and inactivate it. And then those clumps of viruses and antibodies can be destroyed by other cells in the immune system. After an infection has been fought off, there are going to be memory cells or memory B cells that are formed to provide protection in the future if somebody was exposed to the same pathogen again, so they would respond to that and fight it off more quickly, possibly not becoming sick. It depends on what the pathogen is, or not becoming as sick as they would had they not fought it off before. Other lymphocytes are called T cells, and there's different varieties of T cells. We have helper T cells. They are going to help identify what the pathogen is. There are killer T cells, which will destroy cells infected with the pathogen. Suppressor T cells are going to kind of slow down the immune response once the infection is pretty much fought off. And then there will also be memory cells formed in response to what all of those T cells had to fight off as well. So there will be memory T cells of each type made, again, to help you fight something off more quickly in the future. Again, we just have a short video that'll show you a little bit about this. So you may see immune system listed for things. You also may see the lymphatic system. They're very intertwined and kind of do the same thing. So the video will talk about the lymphatic system, but again, very close to the same thing.
The lymphatic system is a multifunctional body system. Its roles include transportation of lymph and combating infection. The components of the lymphatic system include lymphatic vessels, lymph nodes, and lymphatic organs. Lymphatic vessels form an extensive network of thin-walled vessels that transport lymph around the body, eventually emptying it into the venous system. Lymphatic vessels contain numerous valves and have a beaded appearance, bulging between adjacent valves when filled with lymph. Lymph nodes are small masses of lymphatic tissues situated along the course of the superficial and deep lymphatic vessels. Their function is to filter lymph as it passes through the lymphatic system en route to the venous system. Lymphatic organs are structures that produce lymphocytes and include the spleen and the thymus gland. Lymphocytes are white blood cells which circulate in the bloodstream and lymphatic system and are concentrated in lymph nodes. They are components of the immune system and have a role in combating infection.
All right, so again, with our immune system, those cells can kind of also be included in the lymphatic system. So very similar kind of overlapping systems. Next, what we're going to look at is the respiratory system. The respiratory system is going to function in gas exchange. So you need to have air enter your body because you need to use the oxygen that's in the air you're breathing in. So air should enter your respiratory system through your nostril into your nasal cavity. You can also get air into your respiratory system through your mouth. However, the nasal cavity has filtering features that your mouth does not have. So if you breathe through your nose compared to your mouth, that air is going to be more filtered and keep things from getting down into your respiratory tract. So air enters your respiratory system either through the nose or through the mouth, and then it needs to travel through the pharynx, which is your throat. From there, it needs to go through the larynx, which is your voice box, and then down into your trachea. The trachea is also called the windpipe, just kind of in common language. You can see it's got kind of bands on it. It looks kind of striped. And those are rings of cartilage. The cartilage helps hold your trachea open to allow air to flow in or out easily. At the base of the trachea, it's going to split into the right and left bronchus, or bronchi would be plural. Those will continue to branch. You can see them branching inside here. Those are going to be called bronchioles. And at the end of the bronchioles, you would have alveoli. We will see a drawing of them on a later slide, but that would be where gas exchange actually happens. You also have a diaphragm, which is a sheet of muscle that pretty much completely separates the inside of your body into your thoracic cavity above the diaphragm and then your abdominal cavity below your diaphragm. When you breathe in, okay, that process of inhaling, your diaphragm muscle contracts. It's going to be pulled down. So if you take a really deep breath in and hold it, what happened was your diaphragm contracted and air was pulled into your lungs. Now, if you breathe out, I feel like it's so weird that I'm breathing in and out so loud enough to try to make you hear it. But if you breathe out forcefully, what's happening, or even if it's not forcefully, your diaphragm muscle relaxes and that pushes air out of your lungs. When gas exchange happens, you need air coming down through the respiratory tree. We call it the respiratory tree because it looks kind of like an upside down tree where the trachea would be the trunk. And then that splits into the branches, which would be the bronchi and bronchioles. I guess you could say that the leaves on that tree would be the alveoli, which are little air sacs that are surrounded by capillaries. Diffusion will allow the oxygen that's in your alveoli to go into the blood in the capillaries, and the carbon dioxide in the blood in your capillaries to go back into the alveoli so you can breathe that out. Okay, here we'll be able to see kind of some of these structures in 3D.
The respiratory system provides the body with the ability to perform gas exchange with our external environment. It consists of an extensive network of branching tubes whose sac-like endings are in close contact with blood vessels. It is at these points that oxygen enters the blood and carbon dioxide exits. Anatomically, we divide the respiratory system into two distinct parts: the upper respiratory tract and the lower respiratory tract.
All right, so again, respiratory system functions in gas exchange. You need oxygen to get into your cells so that you can make energy, and you need carbon dioxide to get out of your body because it's a waste product of your cells making energy. Next, we're going to take a look at the reproductive system. So that is going to allow gametes or sex cells, which would be egg and sperm, to be produced, to mature, and they will also store gametes. This system is controlled really by hormones that are going to be released by the pituitary gland in your brain that will then trigger other hormones to be released by either the testes or the ovaries. So in the male reproductive system, you would have testes. There are two of them. Testis would be singular. Inside of each testis, there would be these little tubules called seminiferous tubules. That is where sperm cells are formed. And then they're stored in the epididymis, which kind of rests on top of each testy. Next, there's going to be a tube called the vas deferens, where sperm would travel through. Kind of comes in front of the bladder and through the prostate glands, and then it would travel through the urethra inside of the penis and then leave the body. For the female reproductive system, you would have ovaries, which would be where the eggs will mature and be released. Then you would have fallopian tubes, where typically a fertilization occurs. It happens in the fallopian tube, and then that fertilized egg would travel and be implanted in the wall of the uterus. If there is no egg implanted, then the lining of the uterus is shed during the menstrual cycle, and that would leave the body through the vagina. The reproductive system, we will not really do anything with until we would get to the cat dissection in May. We'll look to see if each group has a male cat or a female cat, and kind of go over the reproductive system again then. So we won't really see anything more with that until closer to the end of the school year. Next, we have the urinary system. As far as the number of organs in the urinary system, it's fairly simple. So your urinary system is going to function to filter your blood. It needs to get waste out of your blood, and in doing that, it'll form urine to be gotten rid of through the process of urination. Your urinary system includes your kidneys, which are going to be the part that actually filters your blood. The ureters are just a tube from each kidney down to the bladder. The bladder is a muscular sac that will temporarily store urine until the urine is released from the body through the urethra. If we look at the structure of the kidney has about 1 million nephrons in it. So each kidney has 1 million nephrons, so you would have about 2 million nephrons in your body since you have 2 kidneys. What's going to happen is the blood goes into the kidney through the renal artery, and it's going to be passed through these nephrons to clean the blood. As part of the nephron, we have these little kind of clusters of capillaries that are called the glomerulus. And that's going to, when the blood is passing through there, that's going to allow waste to leave the blood and be collected in this capsule that's here. It's called Bowman's capsule. And that waste kind of gets funneled out and it becomes the urine. If there's extra water, that's also pulled out of the blood. So your kidneys do play a role in your blood volume, your blood pressure. So that waste would be filtered out along with extra water, salts, things like that. If your blood sugar is high, glucose would come out. And then that urine would leave the kidney through the ureter and go to the bladder. And that filtered blood would leave the kidney in the renal vein. That renal vein winds up carrying blood back to the heart. And then that blood would go from the right side of your heart to your lungs and then back to the left side of your heart to be pumped to your body. You may also, along with urinary system, hear the term excretory system. Excretory system is kind of a broader term that could technically also include the skin because you can get rid of some waste through your sweat. It could also include the digestive system, since your digestive system also helps to get rid of waste. So when we speak about the urinary system, it's typically just referring to getting rid of your liquid waste in your urine, compared to excretory, also possibly including your sweat waste that's gotten rid of and solid waste through the digestive system.
The urinary system is the principal excretory system of the body, enabling the body to regulate its fluid and electrolyte levels. The urinary system consists of abdominal and pelvic organs that are active in the production, storage, and transportation of urine. Anatomically, the urinary system is divided into upper and lower urinary tracts. The upper urinary tract consists of the pair of kidneys and ureters. The kidneys are a pair of bean-shaped abdominal organs that lie along the posterior abdominal wall. The ureters are a pair of 10-inch long tubes that actively carry urine from the kidneys to the urinary bladder. while the lower urinary tract consists of a single urinary bladder and urethra. The urinary bladder is a pelvic organ that can store up to 500 milliliters of urine. The urethra is a muscular tube that is responsible for conveying urine in both sexes and semen in males.
All right, so again, urinary system kind of refers just to kidneys, ureters, bladder, and urethra, whereas excretory system can include getting rid of waste in your sweat from your skin and getting rid of solid waste from your digestive system. We are now at our last of our 11 systems, and we will talk about the cardiovascular system. This is one we do in Anatomy 1, so hopefully you did the heart dissection in Anatomy 1. We should be doing something with the heart later in the year, assuming we are back in school and allowed to do labs. So hopefully we'll get to that point. But in the meantime, we'll go over the function and the parts of your cardiovascular system. Your cardiovascular system is going to function to carry blood throughout your body. In doing that, it's going to get oxygen, nutrients, and hormones to all the cells of your body and carry carbon dioxide and waste away from your cells. The organs involved are going to be your heart, blood vessels, and your blood. So we'll talk about each of those separately. Your heart is about the size of your fist and it's located in the center of your chest. The pointed part, the apex, is tilted towards your left hip. The base, the more flat part up here, is tilted towards your right shoulder. There are 4 chambers in the heart. The upper 2 are called atria, which is plural, or atrium is singular. So you have a right atrium and a left atrium, or you could say you have 2 atria. The lower chambers are called ventricles. So you have a right ventricle and a left ventricle. There are also 4 valves in your heart. You have 1 valve in between the right atrium and the right ventricle, and another valve between the left atrium and left ventricle. So on the right side, it's called the tricuspid valve that separates those 2. On the left, it's called the bicuspid valve. When your heart is contracting and blood is being pushed from the atrium into the ventricles, this valve would be open, or those 2 valves would be open to let blood flow down into the ventricle from each atrium. When the ventricles pump blood out of the heart, the blood is going to pass through another valve going from the ventricle into an artery. So from the right ventricle into the pulmonary artery, or the left ventricle into the aorta, which is this the largest blood vessel in your body, which is here. These valves, the 2 atrioventricular valves, are going to be pushed closed so that blood's not flowing backwards when your heart's trying to get blood out of itself. So we would have the pulmonary valve here, where the blood would go from the right ventricle through the pulmonary valve into the pulmonary artery. Whenever you see the prefix pulmo, it refers to your lungs. So the blood is going to go to your left lung there and then to the right lung here. Where this kind of splits and then you don't see it anymore, that would be behind these 2 vessels going to your right lung. When blood is leaving your left ventricle, it gets pumped through this valve right here, which is the aortic valve, and it goes up to the aorta, and then it'll go to the rest of your body from there. Now that we've mentioned a couple blood vessels, we'll talk about those. Your arteries are going to carry blood away from the heart. So think of A for away, and veins return blood back to your heart. We usually have, in pretty much all of your arteries are going to have oxygen-rich blood in them, and pretty much all of your veins have oxygen-poor blood in them. There is a place in your body where that is reversed, and that would be close to the heart. We'll worry about that more when we get to the cardiovascular system, since this is just kind of an intro. So when you see red and blue on diagrams, that's just referring to where there is oxygen-rich and oxygen-poor blood. It's not meaning that we actually have blue blood in us, because we don't. And then finally we have capillaries. Those are going to connect your arteries to your veins, and that's where diffusion actually happens. So when we mentioned the respiratory system just a little bit ago, oxygen going from the air in your alveoli into your blood, and then the carbon dioxide going from your blood into the alveoli so you can breathe it out. That happens through diffusion. Food, nutrients, I should say, getting from your digestive system into your blood. that happens through diffusion. Waste leaving your blood and being filtered out in the kidneys, that happens through diffusion as well. So it's going to be a really important process that happens, and it's able to happen in the capillaries because their walls are so thin. And by so thin, I mean their cells are only one cell, or their walls, sorry, are only one cell thick. So that makes the process of diffusion a lot easier. Next, we have your blood. So you have 3 kinds of blood cells. You have red blood cells that carry oxygen, white blood cells we talked about with your immune system a little bit, that help fight pathogens, and platelets, which are these tiny little pieces. Those are cell fragments that help with blood clotting. So if you were to get a small paper cut on your finger that started to bleed, your platelets would help stop that bleeding process. The last thing we're going to talk about with your cardiovascular system right now is circulation. You have 3 types of circulation in your body. Pulmonary circulation, if you remember just a little bit ago, I told you pulmonary refers to your lungs. So this is when blood is pumped from the right side of your heart to each lung and then comes back to the left side of your heart. What's going to happen in your lungs is that oxygen is going to be picked up and carbon dioxide is going to be dropped off for you to breathe that out. From then the left side of your heart that now has oxygen-rich blood in it, that's going to be pumped out of your heart to all of the systems of your body, and that's called systemic circulation. So if you think of systemic as in your body systems, that's getting oxygen-rich blood to all of your body systems. Something that's not shown on this diagram is coronary circulation, and that is when the heart pumps blood to itself. That's going to actually be the first place your heart will pump oxygen-rich blood to. You have small vessels that branch off right at the base of the aorta, and go back to feed the heart's muscle, those heart's tissues, to keep it working efficiently. Our last thing we're going to do is just again look at a video so you can see some of these things.
The cardiovascular system transports blood around the human body and is made up of the heart and blood vessels. Blood carries oxygen, nutrients, and hormones to the tissues of the body and carries waste products such as carbon dioxide away from the tissues. Blood vessels can be separated into 3 groups: arteries, veins, and capillaries. Arteries carry blood away from the heart. Veins carry blood towards the heart. Capillaries are microscopic, thin-walled blood vessels which form a vast network connecting the arteries and veins. The walls of the blood vessels have 3 layers. The outer layer is called the tunica externa and is made of fibrous connective tissue. The middle layer is called the tunica media and is made of smooth muscles and elastic fibers. The inner layer is called the tunica intima and is made of a single layer of cells called the endothelial cells. The lumen is the hollow cavity bordered by the walls of the blood vessel.
Okay, so that all brings us to the end of our part 2 of the body system intro. You are going to use this lesson to complete your assignment for today, and this takes us to the end of our 3rd week of the school year. What we're going to be doing next week is a little bit of stuff to look more into the body systems a little bit. So maybe start thinking about what your favorite system might be, or which system you might be most interested in, because you're going to be doing more with this next week. So again, you'll use this lesson to help you complete the assignment for today. If you have questions with anything, please just let me know.